Great. So before we begin today's session, I'd like everyone present in the room to scan this QR code. And so that will link you to a website where you can mark your attendance. So please do that.
I believe there's a mistake. Yeah, there's a mistake in the form, so please just choose the random option for question 3. Okay. Good evening. I believe some, if not most of us, are in a deep sorrow with regard to the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Her Majesty is a respected monarch, a humble servant, and of course, once the sovereign of Hong Kong. 75 years ago, a 21-year-old young woman pledged to the world that her life be dedicated to public service. And this young woman honored her words until the very last day of her life. As the sovereign of Hong Kong, Her Majesty had fond memories of the Pearl of Orient. During the royal visit 1975, she made a remark. The more difficult the Hong Kong people encounter, the stronger their will to fight and persevere. Striving to survive the rare adversity, persevering in their attempts to survive. Her Majesty's perseverance, humility, wisdom, and mobility shall continue to be the core virtues of young women and men of Hong Kong and the world. Now, we shall return to our business tonight. In the past decade, we live in a post-truth era. Facts are distorted and the truth is belittled. And most fatally, relativism undermines constantly the value of truth. Simply put, people no longer believe that there is a truth. And what's worse is authorities started to distort facts. And we recognize it, but we are tired of defending against blatant lies, for there are just too many of them every day. The Pork Film Union was founded in 2021 against such background. And the union is dedicated to promote critical thinking and to cultivate a truth-seeking culture in both U-Hall and the HKU Hall community. We have organized events of various forms in the last session, including workshops on debating and music, a seminar on the Russo-Ukrainian War, and a feature talk on Cha Chan Tang, tea restaurants in Hong Kong. In the coming semester, we plan to hold, of course, this session, a debating session, and a feature talk on local culture, featuring Miss Stacy Wong, a famous writer and commentator, Wong Dixie. We will continue to use creative and innovative means to enhance the intellectual environment in U-Hall and to achieve our goals. Finally, light shines in darkness, and the darkness extinguish it not. We will stand firm, for men seek light, not darkness, fullness, not vanity, and truth, not lies. Thank you.
Right, so let's begin this session with, good evening everyone, Mr. President and fellow members, and welcome to the third session of the Pork Film Union. My name is Nafisul Islam, and I am a resident member living in B3, and it is my greatest honor to moderate today's discussion concerning whether or not artificial intelligence can possess an existential threat to humankind. And I am humbly thankful towards this great opportunity provided to me by the Pork Film Union. As some of you may already know, Pork Film Union is a student-driven initiative directed by the residents of University Hall, dedicated to promoting critical thinking and cultivate an awareness of current affairs at the University of Hong Kong. The format is borrowed from the prestigious Oxford Union, featuring debates, lecture sessions, and workshops on various issues. Joining us today, we have Yao Xiangwen, an HKU computer science graduate from the class of 2021, who is currently working as a robotics system analyst at Cornerstone Robotics. We also have with us Arthur Chung, a current student, as well as Shahir Zia, also a current student studying in computer science and mathematics. May we all have a big round of applause for our speakers present here to enlighten us today. So we live in the age of computers that have become so advanced that even the mobile phones in our pockets can think. Every time you ask Google Maps to find a route, ask Siri to set up an appointment, your phone thinks. It processes your input and then provides you with a response based on its own thought process. And it does this through a revolutionary breakthrough in computer science in recent history, artificial intelligence. And with that, computers are now able to devise their own methods to solve problems on their own without providing it with any set of fixed guidelines on how to solve a problem, unlike a traditional program would. Since its inception in 1951, AI, which I will be referencing to instead of artificial intelligence from this point forth, has matured significantly and has come to the point where sometimes it is practically impossible to distinguish the actions of an AI from that of humans. How so, you may ask? Well, let us have a look at this video to demonstrate how it is the case. So before I play this video, to put some context, this is Google Assistant that will be making a haircut appointment for the user over a phone call with a hair salon. So let's have a look at how the AI actually handles this conversation.
So what you're going to hear is the Google Assistant actually calling a real salon to schedule an appointment for you. Let's listen.
Oh, how can I help you? Hi, I'm calling to book a haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd. Sure, give me 1 second. Mm-hmm. Sure, what time are you looking for around? At 12 p.m. We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15. You have to be between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. Depending on what service she would like, what service is she looking for? Just a woman's haircut for now? Okay, we have it 10 o'clock. 10 a.m. is fine. Okay, what's her first name? The first name is Lisa? Okay, perfect. So I will see Lisa at 10 o'clock on May 3rd. Okay, great. Thanks, great. Have a great day. Bye.
Right. So it is quite shocking just how natural this conversation sounds. All the nuances in speech, all the pauses, hesitations that a normal human speaker would have, there's virtually no difference from that of a real human. However, as great of a technological feat that deserves the most admiration and recognition, it also brings about a serious concern for all of us gathered here. This AI, Google Assistant, has in fact learned how to speak all of this by itself, using the data that it was provided with, much like how we would approach to solving problems in real life. So that brings the question, if computers can now rival humans in terms of learning, just how powerful could they become in the future? And it begs the question, could it possess an existential crisis to humans in the future? Now, before we address the question, we need to first understand the concept of learning, and more specifically, how computers can think. To facilitate with just that, we have brought over a simple game, a game of learning Chinese, to demonstrate how we, humans, can learn how to do things. I will allow Donald to explain how the procedures of the game will work. So, Donald?
Yes, thank you, Nafis. Yeah, before we start this panel discussion, we would like to play a game called Chinese Room Experiment. So I would like to invite 3 non-Chinese speaking students to come here. Any volunteers? Yes, please. Yes, I need one more non-Chinese speaking student. Yes, thank you. Let's give them a big hand. Yes. Okay, this game actually, you can come here, come closer here. This game actually is quite simple. I have two papers, they have the same content, and there are some Chinese sentences, okay? And all our participants need to read the Chinese sentences, but they will not, I beg, they will not, I bet they will not know the meaning of the Chinese sentences. But after they read the sentences, they need to learn to answer the three questions. Okay, each of them has one question, okay, the Chinese question. Okay, let's see how does the experiment works. Okay. Okay, so can you read the sentences here? Okay, you don't need to read it out, but you need to know the pattern. Okay, and then can you try to answer these questions using these hints?
Can I translate?
You cannot use any translators. Okay. This is called experiment. Why? Because you are not going to use any Google or any kinds of assistant. And you need to make a guessing. Okay.
Of course I cannot.
You don't need to know the meaning, actually.
So you want me to read them?
So, can you find out any similarities between the sentence and also the questions? Yes, you can. Okay, we are about to show the questions on the screen and see if you can play this experiment, especially our non-Chinese speaking students.
Just the last character for this is same, and this is, I think, I. This stands for I. If I, something, it's a situation there.
Yeah,
This
you see if here, and then is the answer.
Yeah.
Okay, then I will give them each of them one piece of paper, and they need to answer the question. Okay, each of you get one paper. And backup pen, I know that you can write down the answers. Probably you will do the question 1, question 2, and question 3. Okay, let's see our participants can really whether they can really answer the questions. You can just write down the answer. Yeah, write down this, please. Okay. Yes, on the screen, as you can see, it shows the questions here. Maybe you can, yeah, write down the answers there.
Which question do I have to?
Here, number 2. Yeah, just give a try.
You have to write the Chinese characters.
Yes. Okay, they are now writing down the Chinese characters by answering the questions. Okay, let me show you the 3 questions. Okay, they have to answer these 3 questions as shown on the screen. So in this game, in this Chinese room experiment, actually there's some context behind it. Okay, the BBC studio has tried it out once and broadcasted it on the YouTube channel. Okay, you may try to take a research on it after this session and see how does it actually work. Actually, it's a funny experiment, and it gives us a hint on how does AI work, and it relates to our topic. Can AI pose existential crisis to humans? Okay, let's see if our participants can answer it correctly. So maybe the first one. Okay, the first question. 你喜欢学电脑吗？你喜歡學電腦嗎？ Okay, and our first participant answered really correctly. Okay, he raised it correctly. Yeah, let's give him a big hand. Yeah, thank you. And so,
I believe they can read Chinese.
okay, so the next question. 你是不是中国人? Okay, this is a question, okay? And you have to answer it by learning the sequence and the patterns as shown on the paper. And as well, he answers it correctly. Okay, he answers 我不是中国人. Okay. Let's give him a big hand. Thank you.
Just let Connor help you.
Okay, never mind. Yes. For our third participant, okay, and he answers the third question. The third question is, 你会用电脑吗？你会用电脑吗？ And he answers, unfortunately, is 你去過中文，你去過中文. So obviously, this is incorrect. But this game shows thank you for everyone for your efforts. Yeah, let's give them a big hand. Yes. So we're gonna explain how what's the theory behind this game. Okay, maybe it's Nafi's turn.
Great. Thank you, Donald. So, as you can see, these 3 people have never learned Chinese in their life before, yet somehow they've learned how to respond with the right characters to a certain degree in the span of just a few minutes. That is commendable. Similarly, an AI, unlike a traditional computer program, can actually learn how to solve a certain problem without having any prior knowledge or approach as to how it should deal with the problem. To address this on a more technical level, as to how exactly an AI is able to do this, I will pass on to one of our speakers who will now address in more detail as to how a computer can actually learn how to approach a certain problem. So, Sean, perhaps?
Hello. So this is Sean. So obviously, I know there are definitely some people in the room that know much more this than me, and there are also people who definitely hate math. So I'm trying to stay neutral about this. So essentially, you can say right for now, what we are doing with deep learning is we try to put like very simple neurons that just input, like you give a number and then I just do very simple multiplication, addition to it, and then we hopefully will get something. And I think there's a basic theorem for that is called universal approximation theorem, and it is that with a neural network that with only one single layer, so that means you can take as many input as possible. And I will just, for every single input, I will just do very simple multiplication and then addition. And then I can if the input and output, that function that you're trying to approximate is a continuous function, then in this way, with as many neurons as possible, you can always approximate this function. And I think that's a very powerful idea in that as long as there's inherently, once you put even more layer, and then it's able to learn even more complicated structures of ideas or things, and then you'll be able to achieve some very amazing job.
Yeah, and just to put it in a nutshell, the fundamental essence of this process is essentially feedback. Like, you learn by getting feedback. And so in machine learning, as they call it, the experts call it, the computer gets, or the AI model gets feedback, and it learns if what its predicted output was correct or not. And based on how good the output was, it sort of learns somehow that, oh, I need to make a different prediction. And it's very interesting because we treat the model as a black box. So we have no idea what's going inside. When we are using computer vision, or like the cameras inside your Teslas, if you have like Teslas, or someone you know who owns Teslas, the software that's running on the cameras and the AI that's running the computer vision, even the AI engineers themselves don't completely understand like what exactly, like what sequence of instructions is being executed to identify that object. And because if they knew, they would just write a simple program to do that instead. But that's why they use an AI. They use some sort of feedback and some sort of neural networks and all these complicated algorithms and formulas to create this feedback loop, essentially, where they feed the AI model some data to learn by itself. And in a sense, it's akin to a newborn learning how to speak or learning how to walk. And like we don't really understand how that AI is learning. So we treat it as what we call in computer science a black box. And this has some philosophical repercussions. Like people fear that because we don't know what's happening, this may lead in some offshoot scenario of the AI going rogue somehow and just taking over the world. But then there's also this very real concern of AI being very, very good at learning very repetitive tasks and then somehow taking over the job market. So if you can imagine like data entry jobs or jobs that are very simple, they could be automated, and AI could be used to replace us essentially. And I think I have a similar story about the Chinese room experiment. There was actually this Google AI engineer in like 2015 or 16, I believe, or maybe earlier, who was working on this AI model called Lambda, which was an in-house project by Google. And this AI engineer went out to the broadcasting news companies in the US and in the UK, claiming that this AI he was working on had become sentient and that it had come to life. And to put things into context, what actually happened was that the AI he was working with was a natural language processing AI. So it was taking in our language, so the words we speak or the text we use to write, and it was making judgment calls on it. Because you can imagine, like, if we Google something, even though what we type may not exactly match with what we meant, Google picks up on it. And that process is that they use AI to do that for us. Like, even if there's a disconnect between the exact words we use, Google still understands us somehow. And there's AI behind that. And so it was one of those AI models. And the AI engineer was working on removing bias from that AI, because as you can imagine, like the data fed to the AI model was heavily biased with Western sources, because it's most of the Western world that uses the internet, and so you can imagine how that might add bias into the AI model. And so what happened was that the AI engineer says like, oh, let's have some fun. Let's ask this AI a trick question. So no matter what the AI answers, it will be wrong. It will somehow have bias. And the AI engineer just expected like the program to crash or just nothing to happen. But he was shocked when he learned that, when he saw that the AI, instead of giving a black or white answer, just made a funny remark and evaded answering the question at all. And he was just so took aback by that that he started going around the US claiming that this AI had somehow become sentient. And I think he didn't really sort of believe that it had become alive, it had come alive, but more so that he wanted to raise awareness surrounding the ethics of AI, because he believed that the policy that Google was using at the time in their company wasn't exactly what he would call ethical. And so I think he wanted before every experiment, he wanted to ask the AI to give consent, and that's sort of, he was very interested in the ethics side of things. And yeah, but to explain it, it's not essentially that the AI had become sentient. It was just trained with a bunch of data sets, or a language corpus, as they call it. And it had become really good at predicting, if given this paragraph, which word should I put in next? And would you call that sentience? I'm not really sure, because like even as we showed in the experiment earlier, even the non-locals who didn't, or the people who don't speak Chinese, were able to mimic that process. So, but does that mean that they understand Chinese? So similarly, I can ask that, does this mean that like the AI Lambda had become sentient and was able to speak? It's very open-ended, I'd say. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Sean and Shahir. Arthur, would you like to add anything to the conversation?
Maybe I'll just make the answers simple. So what I like to say is AI is actually not so hard for you to understand. It's just some mathematics plus computer skills plus some statistics. It's just, that's all, nothing else. And what you have seen for those three audience, you may see that there are some kind of five blocks with those those samples of Chinese sentences. You may see that what we call that is that that final audience has no prior Chinese knowledge on those sentences or wordings. But he although answered those the final question wrongfully. But I would think that as the trained sample is not big enough, in the human language, we will say that he's not learned enough. What does that mean? That I would say that the second block, have you been to China? And the fourth block, do you speak Chinese? You may see the third question is more similar to the second block instead of the fourth block. That means that audience will definitely answer this question wrongfully. That is what AI will do as well. The AI will answer the question wrongfully if the training data set is not big enough. That's totally statistical concept. It's not difficult. What is AI? AI is trying to simulate the human's minds, how our neuroscience will work. AI is trying to simulate that kind of patterns. That is what neural network, the concept of neural network is just simple as that. So that's all of my answer. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Thank all of you for your input. And as you can see from what they have just discussed, is that an AI is actually able to construct its own knowledge base to be able to solve a given problem. And so based on the input, it's able to make decisions. And this is precisely which brings me to restate the question we have at hand, that even though they have stated that it may not resemble sentience, but it still does pose the question that logically, if you're able to solve a problem, you could perhaps solve a problem that benefits you. In this case, it would be the AI. So if that were the case, if an AI were to be powerful enough to gain a knowledge base sufficiently big enough that it can realize what's good for its own benefit, could it eventually present an existential crisis to humans? And one other thing that I want to discuss is the speed at which AI can actually learn different things. So for us humans, to pick up a new language, for instance, let's say you would take up a course to do that. It would take you around a semester to learn the entire course. Or perhaps, let's say, learning how to play chess. It would take a human on an average about 2 to 3 weeks to properly learn chess and develop tactics. How much time do you think it would take for an AI to learn how to play chess? Does anyone have any guesses on this? Anyone would like to have any guesses? Right. 2 hours. Right. Yeah, that's actually pretty correct. Actually, Google has an AI called Scotfish, I believe, and it has actually learned how to play chess in just 4 hours, and has beaten out every other existing AI to consistently with a 99% accuracy. So once again, right now, I believe we can have a short 10-minute break. And until then, I would like you guys to have the thought that, like to think amongst yourselves that do you think that AI can actually take over the world, right? And possess and pose an actual threat to humans, right? Thank you.
I think you are pushing too fast.
Huh?
You are pushing too fast.
Yeah,
There were
I
not-
think so too.
Sorry, facing my.
Okay.
No,
You can have a toilet break or you can mingle, talk with your friends. Yeah.